Hello there, I'm Pascal. This is Home Automator, a dedicated channel to learn how to automate our houses with Home Assistant, ESPHome, and other tools at our disposal. Before we start installing ESPHome and then testing it on the microcontroller, I'd like to speak a bit about ESPHome. ESPHome is an open source configuration tool which runs in a browser and compiles to a C++ firmware that can be used in various microcontrollers. Now, using the compatible firmware generated by ESPHome, we can actually integrate various sensors and we can actually automate straight in ESPHome. Now, there are currently 5 microcontrollers that are supported. ESP8266, ESP32, though I find that the S3 can be problematic at times. Raspberry Pi Pico W, which I have here an example of for you, if the cable doesn't mind, and if the focusing happens. There. So this specific board is running a radar style presence sensor. It's also running a temperature and humidity and light. And this is where I want to get to with you in the next few weeks, showing you how to do those and beyond. Obviously, it also has a screen which actually displays some of those sensors. And the last two are the BK72 series and the RTL87 series. Now, both of those are from the LibreTiny project, and I have not tested either. This was integrated, if memory serves me well, in either October or November of 2023. And as I say, I don't have one for demonstration purposes. Like Home Assistant, it's all YAML. So it simplifies that part of things, and a lot of things that work in Home Assistants related to YAML work in ESPHome. It also natively supports both USB and over-the-air updates, so OTA. The good news is that ESPHome is now maintained by Nabukasa, the developers of Home Assistant. So the integration into Home Assistant is very good. Now, something that you must understand, you do not need Home Assistant to be able to use ESPHome, simply because it can be used with an MQTT broker. And using an MQTT broker opens the world. So we're going to need some software and some hardware. For the software, if you go back to my first tutorial, you would see that we installed Home Assistant operating system, and I will be using the very same to carry on with all of the tutorials in the future. Also needed is going to be I'm going to use a Node MCU, but this is an ESP32 development board, very common. And lastly, we're going to need a USB cable. In this case, it is a micro USB cable, but then again, you may have a different board that runs on USB-C or on mini USB. Just make sure that you've got the right cable for it. And we'll move on to the installation. There are 2 ways to install ESPHome. The first one is the one that we will do today, which is going to be through the Home Assistant add-ons, which is only available inside of Home Assistant operating system. The second one is through Docker. Now, if you want me to do a Docker version of this, don't mind, just tell me that you want it and I'll do it. So let's install. So what you see here is the installation as of the last tutorial last week. What we are going to do from here is we are going to go to settings and then go to add-ons, and you will see that we have no add-ons. So we are going to go to add add-ons, and you will see a whole lot of them. Now, if you don't see what I see, it's highly probable that you haven't set up your user correctly. So let me quickly show you where the problem lies. We are going to go over here. Let me show you. This advanced mode is off. So make sure that advanced mode is on. Going back to settings, going back to add-on, going back to add-on store. We will click on ESPHome, the first one. The two others are development versions of it, so we don't want to touch that. As of today, 23.12.9 is the latest. So let us install it by clicking install. Now this may take a second, so what I'm going to do is fast forward it. And there we are, it's installed. Now I do recommend that Starton would be on and Watchdog. I do not recommend auto updates. You'd rather know when it updates. And show in sidebar, which will put it right here for you. Now that we've got all of that done, I'd just like to quickly go to the configuration, and you will see there is nothing to configure. So we come back to ESPHome and we click start, and you will see it will start immediately. I always like to go to the log to see that nothing is wrong. And as you can see right here, successfully started. We will now go to ESPHome itself. So the first thing that we're going to do is actually unusual, because it would be generally something that you're going to build over time. And that would be to do the secrets. So we are going to go over here and we are going to click on secrets. And we are going to insert this code. I will have the code on my GitHub for you for this tutorial. I will put the link at the bottom. Okay, now obviously you got to be careful. I'll show you how to do some of that stuff, but your Wi-Fi SSID is your Wi-Fi SSID. Your Wi-Fi password is your Wi-Fi password, obviously. The gateway, the subnet address, and the DNS address may be different for you. The server user, I use admin on all of them. And I reuse it across the board with the same password. It may be a bit insecure in some ways. The fact is, I really don't want to have 1 billion passwords to remember on 20 or 30 different ESP devices. It becomes unmanageable. The same thing goes with the API. I use one password, one API key. Again, for the over-the-air updates, same story. I use one password. My MQTT password will be different. So I'm going to move from there. I'm not too worried about the MQTT right now. We will address that in a future video. Right now, I am going to put on pause, and then I will be back with you when I've done all of this. And no, you're not going to see my passwords. Before I continue, I'd like to show you a quick way to get a good secret key. So I will go into new devices, continue, name, I'm just going to put X, why not? ESP32, skip, and if you go into here, you have here a fantastic encryption key. Now, I'm not going to use this one. I just wanted you to see how you could do this.
A few moments later.
So now we're coming to the interesting part. We are going to create a new device. We're going to say continue, and we're going to name it something that makes sense. So I'm going to call it ESP32 demo. Next. Now I know that this specific unit is an ESP32, so that's what I will choose. This doesn't matter, so I'm going to skip it. And here is our ESP32 demo that we are going to put on this MCU. So we're going to click Edit, and this is what we get. Now, obviously, we have a few things that is not quite what we want. So I am going to go and copy something that I prepared for us, paste that and take that one out. Okay, and here we are. First things first. You would see that now everything is in the secret. As you can see, everything is in the secrets. Everywhere. Okay, oh, I need to change that to ESP32. ESP32 demo. And the friendly name should be with a space. So everything is now in a secret. The nice thing is you can actually reuse this code in future. So each of your future devices starts with exactly the same code, except that obviously you would change the name and the friendly name. I'll even show you later how to make it that it's so much easier to copy and paste the basic code, which I will also supply on my GitHub. Okay, so from here, what we're going to do is we are going to go to install. Oh, no, sorry. First, we need to connect our ESP device. There you are. You can see it's, I don't know if, yeah, you can see the lights. Okay, so it's on. And now, because I used it in the past, I don't know, notification, new device, and you will see test ESP32 because all right, I actually tested this before. Okay, so let's go back to ESPHome, edit, next step. Something that I've added, which I will actually demo a little later on, is the web server, this section here. I find it very useful to debug. So yeah, but as I say, all of this code will be in my GitHub. Just have a look down in the description. So now we're going to hit install. And in install, you have wirelessly plugged into this computer, plugged into the computer running ESP dashboard or manual download. So wirelessly, it's not ready for it. It's not in the ESPHome computer. It's not connected there. And manual download, well, okay, so let's do this, and this is what happens. It's telling us right now that it has to be over HTTPS. So you have to install SSL in a way or another on Home Assistant. Now, I will address this in a future tutorial, but I wanted to show you how to do it in this event, because on a clean install of ESPHome, this is what will happen. Now, it is still compiling it, and it is still going to be available to us in a moment or two. And I will show you how to put it on the ESP32 device. I am going to forward things a little bit from here because it does take a little bit of time. So see you on the other side.
A few minutes later.
Well, we can now download the firmware into your download folder, and we open ESPHome Web. We are going to connect to, in this case, this USB 2 serial, connect, and we are going to install it. We're going to pick the file from our download folder. We're going to put it here, and we're going to hit install. Again, this is going to take a minute, so I will fast forward through it, the first thing that you're going to notice, though, is that it is erasing it, which is something that other methods, which I will show you a little later on, do not do. Okay, so let's wait for it.
A little longer than a few minutes later.
As we can see, it finished its configuration and it is installed. So we are going to be closing this. And I'm going to check. And oops. Let's check if everything's worked out. And yes, we are online, which is absolutely fantastic. Now I want to show you a few things that are interesting. Number one, we can get the logs. And the nice thing about getting the logs, obviously, is that right here we can see the IP address it's using. Let's clear that up. It won't be sending any data because none of what we've actually initiated has any data. But I still want to show you a few things. So that's number one. Number two, because we enabled the web server, we can hopefully get it up. Okay, so it's admin and the password is and I guess my hope have been answered. Now, obviously, right now, there is, again, no data that's being sent, but this is absolutely great for debugging, in particular debugging. But those are not the only tools that are useful. If you click the little three dots here, you will see that there are a few menu items. Validate is validating the code. Install is to install. Show API key is the API key for use with Home Assistant. You can download the YAML, perfect for backing up. You can also rename the host name. I personally do it in the code itself. And then we can clean the build file. Now that I do quite often, and I'm going to do it now. It's a quick job. It's quick and it releases not only space on your hard drive, but it also forces a full rebuild. So in the event that you've got a problem somewhere along the line, a full rebuild is the best. Lastly, delete. Now, I'm not going to delete this demo just yet because there is one more thing that I'd like to show you. The entire process that I've shown you to install an ESPHome on a ESP32 is only for the first time. Second and third time and thereafter, we don't need it. And I'll show you why. So I am just going to rebuild this, but this time, instead of going plug into this computer, I am going to say wirelessly and watch what happens. This is a full rebuild, so it's going to take a second. And I'll fast forward through it. It's finishing up. It's building the firmware. It is now uploading the firmware. And we should see the debug information shortly. There we are. So the very same debug information that we saw earlier, we can see here as well. Here we can stop it. And this concludes this tutorial. Next Friday, I will be covering a few other things that we're going to install. That wraps it for this tutorial. Next week, we'll be installing the MQTT server as well as the Samba server, which are both add-ons. And after that, we will be moving on to adding some sensors on the ESP32, first internal sensors, and then we'll move on to external sensors. Please like, subscribe, smash that notification button so that you never miss a video. The